Welcome to Film and Page. I'm Dominic, and in this video I'm going to be talking about the 1986 film Heartburn that stars Meryl Streep, Jack Nicholson, and Jeff Daniels. And this movie was directed by Mike Nichols, and the screenplay was by Nora Ephron. So I watched this movie on the weekend on Amazon Prime. I had no intention of doing a review on it. I was just browsing through the movies. I wanted to watch something different from action, sci-fi, horror, from usual. They're just something that I usually don't watch. And I saw this movie came up, and one thing I have to admit is I do have a weak spot for romance films from the 80s for some reason. So Jack Nicholson was in this movie, and I like him as an actor. So I decided to give it a watch. And I have to admit, I was really surprised by this movie. Because it wasn't your run-of-the-mill romance film from the 80s. It, I guess I'll use the phrase, it subverted my expectations, but in a good way. So I'm going to give a quick rundown of the plot. So the movie, before I get ahead, there's going to be heavy spoilers in this video because I have to talk about the ending of this movie. Because this is the whole, for me, this was the linchpin of the whole film, was the ending. So spoiler warning if you haven't seen this movie that's been out for almost 40 years now. So the movie starts off, Meryl Streep is single and she's a writer, and she goes to a wedding with her friend Jeff Daniels, who is her boss. And while she's at the wedding, she meets Jack Nicholson there. She sees him sitting in a few of the aisles over, and then he's also a writer. So Jack Nicholson, they end up talking. Jack Nicholson asks her out. And from here, the movie really picks up and takes off, like right from the beginning. Like things happen very rapidly. It's like they really speed through the relationship at the beginning of the movie. So it goes off. They go on a date. They go for drinks. They end up sleeping together. Then they end up dating, and they end up married. She ends up pregnant. They end up buying a house. So all this happens like really rapidly within the first half of the film. So like within like a half hour in the movie, they're already at the point where they have a house bought and then she's pregnant and things like that. So clips long, it gets into the family stage of their relationship very fast in the movie. Now, Meryl Streep's character thinks everything is going really fine, and from a viewer's perspective, everything seems to be going awesome with the relationship. There's not really any hints anything's going wrong. There's a few here and there, but then Meryl Streep's character comes to a realization that her husband, Jack Nicholson, might be cheating on her. So she goes and she sneaks through his stuff, and she sees that, yes, indeed, she finds evidence that, yes, indeed, he has been cheating on her. She then confronts him, and he doesn't even deny it. He just, what can I say? That's all he says. So they separate. She flies to New York to live with her dad, and then he shows up there. He begs her for forgiveness. She comes back, and the relationship's not the same. Since they got back together, it's worse than it was before. And then she catches him again cheating with him, with the same woman that she caught him with before. And then the movie ends with her getting on the plane as she did earlier in the film and flying away with her kids. Now the plot's pretty simple. It's pretty straightforward plot, like how you can see how quickly I explained the plot. But what I really want to talk about is the ending of this film. So I find like a lot of romance movies, they have like a formula to them. It's usually, two people will meet, they'll still have a big fiery romance, and then something will happen. One of them will cheat, or one of them will screw up, and then they'll have this bitter breakup, and then the other one has to kind of like earn the other one back throughout the film, and then when they finally overcome that hurdle, they hook up again, and then they live happily ever after. That seems to be how a lot of romance films go, and I assumed this movie was going to be the same thing, but it turned out it wasn't. This is actually... how can I put it? This is a deceptively simple film. That's the only way I can put it. This is a lot more... This film is much more clever than what it appears to be. So now when I watch movies, I usually don't... And the other thing, this is why I wanted to review this movie, because it took me off guard. Normally I don't talk about romance movies on my channel, but this one was pretty clever, so this one I wanted to talk about. So when I review movies, I usually just review them, then I watch other people's reviews afterwards, just so they're opinions don't kind of like influence me on any kind of level. But this one I did. I watched one review before doing my own. And there's not very many reviews of this movie on YouTube. The one reviewer I picked, he talked about the film, and this reviewer said that now his complaint of the film was that they don't really set up very well that Jack Nicholson is a cheater in this movie. And so you're really taken by surprise when he ends up cheating, and it's not really set up. It just comes out of nowhere. And the other complaint was that you never see anything from Jack Nicholson's side of the story. Never anything from his character. It's always from the woman's side. And like when she goes to New York the first time and leaves him, Jack Nicholson's actually gone from a good chunk of the film. It doesn't fly, like the movie doesn't go back over to see what he's going through or what he's doing while they're separated at all. So you have no idea what he's doing in the movie. And then he just shows up and he gets her back and they get back together. Now, I have to disagree that it's not set up. And I think there's a very good reason why you don't see things from Jack Nicholson's character's viewpoint at all, if any. It's all from the woman's viewpoint. So when they get in the scene when they're getting married, she's in the room and she's kind of got cold feet. She doesn't want to come out of the bedroom or to get married, and so all these family members keep coming in, keep giving her prep talks. Well, at one point, Jack Nicholson's two friends come in the room and they tell her, this is a great guy you're going to be married. You're the only woman we've ever seen him treat decently. And then they go and tell her all the women he's ever had before, he's treated really poorly. Like brought them to their house for dinner, and then he's ditched them there at their place and took off, and like really stuff like that. So it's implied that he does have a past of being a dog, Jack Nicholson's character. So that right there is the heads up. And the other reason I think it's clever that it's all from the woman's point of view, because it puts you in a real life situation of what a relationship's actually like. A lot of people who get into relationships, sometimes they ignore red flags. So Jack Nicholson's friends telling her about his past with women, that should have been a red flag for her. If it was in real life, that would be a red flag in real life dating, and she ignores that and marries him anyway. And the other thing, I think it's more effective if it's all from her point of view in the movie, from Meryl Streep's point of view, is because when you're in a relationship and you ignore all these red flags because you're all blinded by emotion and stuff like that, and then when the cheating happens or something bad happens, you kind of get blindsided by it, as the character is in this movie. So it puts you much more in the character's shoes as a viewer, because you are also blindsided by it. All of a sudden he's having an affair that comes out of nowhere. So I actually think that's a benefit to the film. And so I think this is a movie I almost would like to watch twice, because there might be more clues, but they might be subtle. It might be like subtle hints throughout the film that he is cheating on her that you wouldn't pick up on upon first viewing. And now the other thing I liked about this movie is I really like the ending, because it didn't stick to that formula. Because I did a video probably a few months ago now about a thing in movies that when it happens, it annoys me. It's not a deal breaker for me. Like the two movies I gave the example of, I still like those two movies, but it is kind of a pet peeve when this happens, or it's just something I find unrealistic, is when a character pulls all these shenanigans in a movie and his character their character doesn't face any real consequences, but they still grow as a character. To me, that's kind of like unbelievable. Like the example I gave was Eddie Murphy in Boomerang. He ends up having an affair he ends up sleeping with his boss, but then he ends up falling in love with her assistant, which is played by not Drew Barrymore, but Halle Berry. And they end up falling in love, and but then he ends up going back with the boss, cheating on her, and he actually kind of steals Halle Berry from one of his best friends. So he alienates one of his best friends, and he ends up cheating on Halle Berry with his boss again. But then at the end of the movie, she ends up forgiving him, and then his friend ends up forgiving him. So he gets the woman in the end, and all of his world's not really disrupted at all. So he pays no price for what he does. But then we're expected to believe that he would learn from that. See, I find that kind of unbelievable. That, to me, that's not believable. I don't think he would learn from that. Where in this movie, Jack Nicholson's character, he pulls all these things, and he does pay a price because she just leaves him at the end. The price is he loses his wife and kids for lying and cheating on her, and not living up to his marriage vows and things like that. He pays a real life price for it at the end, which a lot of these movies don't do that. And I really like that the movie, because I thought for sure he was going to somehow stop her again, or he was going to somehow win her back, and they would get back together, and it would be like happy ever after kind of thing. But no, she just gets in the plane, flies away, and the plane flies off, the credits roll, and then as the credits roll, I sat there and I was like a little bit dumbfounded. I was like, what? That's the end? That's how it ends? I thought he's not going to get her back. That's not how these movies are supposed to go. And then I was like, thought about it, and I was like, oh, that's a good ending. No, but that is a good ending. His character actually faced some consequences. So that's why I really like this movie. I wanted to talk about it. And the other thing I found out that was kind of cool is the screenwriter, Nora Ephron. She actually wrote a book, I think by the same title, Heartburn, that this film was based on, and she did the screenplay for this film as well. But this movie is actually based on one of her marriages, and so is the book. So this is like pulling from real life, and that's what I like about this movie. And the other thing about these kind of movies, it's like not an action movie. There's nothing in there that's really political. There's no horror elements. It's just people living their lives, like everyday lives, and it's kind of cool to see people in movies, like especially from the 80s, because I grew up in the 80s and stuff, just to see how people lived then. Stuff we take for granted wasn't around then, like internet and cell phones and all that. So it's kind of cool just to see people living their lives in these movies from that time period. I think that's kind of nice. That's another thing I like about these types of movies. So yeah, so if you haven't seen this movie, I would definitely recommend it to check it out. I think it's a pretty clever film, and I really enjoyed watching it. And it really took me by surprise. I didn't think I would like it as much as I did, and I definitely wasn't planning on doing a review on it either. So that's everything I got to say in this video. Let me know what you think in the comment section, and I will see you at the next one. I'd like to say thank you to all of my subscribers. I appreciate you all in helping this channel grow. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Also, don't forget to hit the bell icon so you'll be notified when new videos are uploaded.